Welcome to the Generation to Revelation podcast.
A boomer,
a Gen Xer,
and a millennial walk into a church to discuss relevant faith topics for today. Welcome back to the Generation to Revelation podcast. Our topic today, miracles.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. So I want to talk about just miracles in general, and then I want to talk about the biggest miracle, the resurrection of Jesus, because this podcast is going to launch during Holy Week, and we are ramping up to a very important holy day in our Christian tradition to recognize that Jesus rose from the grave, and it's kind of a cornerstone of our Christian faith. But I want to start first with kind of just miracles in general. We've talked about this during our Science and Religion podcast. Do you believe in miracles?
Yes.
yes.
I believe in miracles.
Yep.
Isn't that the hockey game between the U.S. and Russia?
Do
like,
you
do you believe in miracles? And they come back.
Michaels. Yeah.
I mean, that might be actually...
I don't know if I believe in sports miracles, but I do believe in miracles.
Right? The miraculous catch and all that stuff.
Yeah. Angels in the Outfield. That millennials? Anyone? Anyone? Great movie.
I do remember that movie.
Angels in the
Is that like Christopher Lloyd or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
he was the head angel.
It's hilarious.
Oh yeah, so good.
Anyway, miracles. I believe in them. It's a big question is like, do they still happen, right? Some Christians kind of will divvy up that way to say, okay, I read the Bible, sure, God did these things, Jesus did these things, but that was it. It was for then, not for now. And so...
Well, and Jesus can do them. I can't do them.
Right.
Yeah. Jesus was walking around doing things.
I believe that Jesus can do things I can't do.
Absolutely.
That's pretty safe. I mean, I get frustrated by that, you know, following Jesus, and Jesus did all these miracles, and then I can't do them. Why can't I heal people the way Jesus healed people, or exorcise demons? And maybe, you know, I pray for those things to happen. Maybe they happen, and I just don't get credit for a miracle. I don't know. But I mean, now if you do a couple miracles, you get to be a saint, right? You have to have 2 to your name, and then you can be sainted. So I have 0 to my name.
That is a Catholic thing, just FYI.
Yeah.
We Lutherans, we do love our saints, but we don't quite.
We don't actually make saints.
We don't have a criteria.
We rely on the Catholics to make the saints, and then we're like, yeah, we believe in those guys too.
Right, yeah.
We like
girls,
that one.
Yep. Yeah. So, I think I recently read C.S. Lewis's work called Miracles, where he kind of divides, there's miracles of old creation and there's miracles of new creation. And I liked how he laid it out, because when I come to miracles in the scriptures, I like when I can scientifically make them make sense in my head.
I feel like you and I have gone head to head on this
We
before.
have absolutely.
Yeah,
we have absolutely in Science and Religion. And so C.S. Lewis kind of labels old creation as like God worked within the elements, right? He made more bread happen, more fish happen from the bread and fish that were already there.
Right.
Jesus calmed the storm.
He didn't make a new thing.
Right. He didn't make a new
bread.
thing.
Is manna bread? I don't know.
Right. Manna from heaven. Well, yeah. It seemed like C.S. Lewis was really focusing on Jesus, but we can go Old Testament too. I like the idea that Naaman had to dunk himself 7 times. The water didn't work. It was not miraculous the first 6 times. It was the 7th time. And so that makes me think more of like God just wanted to make sure that you were actually like Naaman actually wanted this enough and was willing to dunk himself 7 times. But C.S. Lewis names like old creation, meaning working with the elements, working with what's already available and provided in this world, and then new creation, Jesus rising from the dead, a completely new thing, and even the raising of Lazarus, completely new thing.
As 2 different types of miracles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'll just be honest, when he labeled new creation miracles, I was like, yep, those are the ones that are hardest for me to believe in. I do believe in them, but I would much rather teach a confirmation class about the feeding of the 5,000 or the calming of the storm than Jesus rising from the dead.
Well, let's take the feeding of the 5,000, because one thing I've heard that I don't agree with is that,
I've probably told you this, actually.
Right, maybe. You can tell me if you're on the other side of this.
I probably am.
The feeding of the 5,000, the miracle is the incredible sharing that took place.
Yep.
That it wasn't actually the loaves were multiplied beyond the 5 loaves, that it was everybody shared among 5,000 people, and I just don't think that's enough to write down a story about that. I think like 5 loaves doesn't feed 5,000 people. You know, however many fish doesn't feed 5,000 people. That it was it was a miracle, that something multiplied. There was more there in the feeding than there was at the beginning of the feeding.
Well, and some of them end with like they had 12
They had
baskets.
baskets left over, right?
Right.
And
They had more left over than they even started with. Yeah.
and
No, I have definitely given that because I was told that by a college professor and I was like, that makes sense.
Right.
And so I ran with it.
right. Well, I hear that a lot. Like because miracles are so fantastical, they almost seem magical, and then they seem mythical, and then they seem, well, like it's like every other fiction, right? Like dragons or something. That I don't want to be someone who's naive and believes in silly things happening and magical things happening. And so if someone gives me a better explanation that's not a miracle, I'm in, right? Like it was really salty water, and that's how he could walk on it, right? The wind blew overnight, and that's what part of the Red Sea, and that's a natural phenomenon. People radical sharing with each other, and that's why you can feed 5,000, right? Like but in my mind, that's just, I don't think that's why those stories were written. I don't think they were natural phenomenon that people didn't have a reason for, and so they made them into a miracle. I think they were actual miracles. I think people were smart enough to recognize this doesn't normally happen. This isn't possible. Something from God happened here, and it mattered, and we needed it, and it made a way where there was no way before. And I think miracles by their nature are rare and so newsworthy, right? And so we talk about them, and they write them down. They become scripture, and they become symbols for other things later in the road. I can think of the Passover, miracle of, and some of them, I don't know if C.S. Lewis talks about it, but some of them do involve instruction, like things you have to do, like Naaman
dunking himself seven
times, or Jesus telling people to go wash in the pool and things
or
like
you have
that.
to put lamb's blood over your door on Passover, or the angel of death is coming.
Right, but then it's still, then the miracle happens, right? The angel of death sees the blood, passes over, and then that later is, for Christians, we take that as the Lamb of God is Jesus, whose blood saves us from death and gives us life, eternal life, right? That those miracles play forward in some way. Anyway, all that to say is I'm on the miracle side of that God intervenes in ways that are not explainable by science.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, it seems to me like all of us kind of get torqued about certain things theologically. This is not one that I get torqued over. So I'm going to be doing a lot of listening. I wish I had some popcorn so I could watch watch you two go at it. But stuff to me like suffering, or why is this person's prayer answered and not this one? That's the kind of stuff that torques me. This is like, I don't know, God is infinitely creative. I have no problem with God doing something out of the ordinary.
Right.
It's just easy peasy for me to say, yeah, I don't get it, but I absolutely believe God did it. I absolutely believe it's possible.
And you don't care how.
I really don't. I really kind of don't.
I'm too curious as a kid. I always asked how.
Well, it's sometimes,
Sunday school.
But eventually I get to the point of it doesn't matter.
It's true. It's true.
It's like, so this one, Jesus says, you have your sight. And this one, he goes and spits in the dirt and makes mud and rubs it on the eyes. And then they have to do it twice or something. So,
oh, yeah.
There is
I was going to bring up that miracle, yeah.
Okay, well, go ahead. Run with it, honey.
Well, no. Because I've been reading Mark recently, and there's like, he spits in the dirt, he rubs the dirt on the eyes. I can only see people, but they look like trees.
How does he
Let
know
me
what
do it
trees look like?
again.
What does he know trees
Meanwhile,
look like?
you'll have like a gospel like John where someone will barely touch his clothes and is healed instantly. And I'm like, why is Jesus having to do all this work for this blind man, but the woman hemorrhaging just barely has to touch a thread on his cloak? Right? I'm intrigued by that too.
It doesn't matter.
Right? What's funny is like, I can have all these questions, and then someone will throw like the virgin birth at me, and I'll be like, well, how did that happen? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know God can do amazing things.
But this is an obstacle of faith
Sure.
for a lot of people.
Let's talk about it.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot of people that say, you guys are just, you don't believe in science, you believe in magical things, like you believe in fairy tales. I mean, that's, and why would I sign on for that?
Yeah.
And so, I think one way to talk about it is you experience miracles all the time.
Yep.
Like, things that doctors can't explain, scientists can't explain. Diseases come and go, and nobody knows why. And you hear stories about that all the time. And I think if we're just honest about the world that we live in, not everything is explainable. There's a worldview that says, well, we just can't explain it yet, and we'll get there if we keep examining it. But we haven't gotten there yet. And we've explained a lot of things, but there's a lot of things we haven't explained. And so I believe there will always be acts of God in the world that are unexplainable by the scientific method. That doesn't mean I reject science. I'm all for science. And, if we could take scientists back and, test all the miracles, and maybe we would find some that were, okay, that was explainable. It wasn't an actual miracle. It wasn't an act of God. It was something else. I think most of them would be unexplainable by science, would be acts of God. And it's either you believe it or you don't, right? And I think a lot of life is like that you either believe a miracle happened or you are skeptical. And maybe that's another question, is what changes if you believe or if you don't.
Right. Well, because that's what I like when I come with it with science of like, this is how I can't explain it. I still think God did miraculous things. Like, that healing happened.
It's just the how that you like.
I do like the how. I'm inquisitive. I was the kid in Sundays. So I grew up in Missouri Synod Church before my dad switched over to ELCA somewhere in my middle school years. And so I remember in Sunday school being like the inquisitive kid that they're like, we don't ask that. And I'm just like, but I am asking that. So I remember asking the how questions and being told we don't ask that. So then I got to ELCA church and confirmation, and then the person like recognized my questions, and I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm all in now. But when I hear of like, even if I'm like explaining it away, it's not explaining it away to me, because I'm like, okay, great. We could heal a blind man now. We could take their cataracts out. We could, whatever it might be, we can do that medically. Jesus did it in BC whatever, in 2030 BC.
With spitting words, right?
Right? With spitting words. Like, that is miraculous.
Yeah.
He was not a doctor. He did not slice anyone open. He did not cut anything or pull anything out. Like, he did it purely out of his divine nature. So I still claim it as it, even if I'm like trying to scientifically explain it up here.
Right. Well, if you believe in God, and that's the first barrier, maybe, right?
Yes.
Like, is there a God?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, if you either believe it's a miracle that God did, or you're like, it was coincidence, it was luck.
Right. But as soon as you have crossed the threshold, I believe in a God who made the world,
right,
then a miracle doesn't seem like a stretch at all, right?
Right.
Like, God can do, of course God can do that. Bigger questions are, why doesn't God do it more?
Yes.
Or why doesn't God do it when I want him to? Those are bigger questions. But whether or not a miracle is a miracle or not is really a belief in God or not.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder if some of the reasons that miracles don't happen more is because, sort of like after the feeding of the 5,000, then we would chase the miracle and not the miracle giver.
Oh.
And so I think, because that's exactly what happened after the feeding. Did you come follow me because you want more food? You want another fast food meal? Is that why you came looking for me?
Another show, dinner and a show?
Yeah, or did you come for me? And that's paraphrase. But so I wonder if that's part of it. And then too, and this is just, wondering, but the capability to document everything now that didn't exist throughout history. Mm-hmm. If that's another reason that they're a little bit fewer and farther between, because again, we would chase the miracle and not the miracle worker. Anyway, I'm just spitballing. But the one miracle, probably more than the resurrection or more than anything, that I would scientifically go, man, I don't know how, was when the sun stood still for 2 hours during one of the battles in the Old Testament. Because that messes with my physics. Like gravity, you got to have the sun moving for gravity and the whole system to hold together and blah, blah. For whatever reason, that's one that I would go, yeah, I wonder what really happened there. Yeah. I don't know. But if I'm back to God created the whole thing with a word, then God can make it hold together with a word.
I think some of the miracles that really do matter are the healings that Jesus did, because I think that tells us what the gospel's about. Like, when Jesus came on the scene, like, the things that he did was he healed people who were sick, and he exorcised demons, and he preached good news to the poor, right? Yeah. Like, that was his ministry. And so if we're followers of Jesus, then I think we need to be about healing people, and Christians have been, right? Christians are part of who invested in hospitals first and started that phenomenon in the world, that we need to be people who go against oppression and try to heal people who are being oppressed. Maybe we may or may not call them demons. That's another podcast, right? But we know people with mental illness that, act in ways that people in Scripture who had demon possession acted like, right? So there seems to be a correlation there. So, but I think it does tell us that that this world isn't the way God wanted it to be, that it's broken, that people get hurt, and that part of what Jesus is doing is coming to fix that and heal that. And we who are in the Jesus movement need to be part of that healing too. And praying for miracles, praying for God to do what we can't do, God to fix what we can't fix. And I can't fix a hurricane, I can't fix a earthquake, and so I'm praying for God to come and put an end to those things and fix this world, bring healing to this world so those things don't happen anymore. And I don't know if science will get to the place where we can prevent those kind of natural disasters, and I hope it does, but there are too many things that come against us in this world that we don't have power over, and so we need a God who does, and we have a God who has power over those things and has demonstrated that throughout history, and so that's, I think we talked about this already in a podcast on prayer, but that's part of why we pray, is we're praying for intervention, we're praying for miracles to happen because we need them still.
And I think that we dismiss too easily, and now we understand it. Now we understand how conception works, so it's no longer a miracle. Well, yeah, it is.
Still very much a miracle. Talk to anyone that's in dealing with infertility.
Right.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. And so just because we can explain something scientifically does not minimize the miracleness of it. I made up a word.
Miracleness.
And so to be aware of those things and think about those things. I mean, I think I talked about this in the Science and Religion podcast, but my cell phone. Anybody from 100 years ago, just 100 years ago, forget 1,000 years ago, would look at our cell phone and say, that is a miracle.
That's magic.
It's magic, right? And so, but it doesn't make it any less exceptional that we have them now. We just are dulled to it. We take it for granted.
And so maybe we will get to see the how someday when God kind of pulls back the curtain and says, this is how I do this. We're like, oh, had no idea.
I don't think God's going to teach me how. He's going to be like, get over it. And I'm going to be like, you're right, get over it.
But the biggest miracle is the resurrection, right? That's the one that our faith hinges on, where Paul says, if there is no resurrection of the dead, then we have believed in vain. Like the Christian faith does not work without the resurrection of Jesus. And I believe the physical resurrection of Jesus' body, that was fully dead, and I think part of the witness of Scripture is to make sure we know that this was a real miracle. He's in the tomb for 3 days, and that was kind of the criteria of being fully dead.
Not just mostly dead.
Just mostly dead, right? That he didn't faint on the cross, right? And then I think they make sure to know that we know he's dead. They stab him, he's in the tomb.
Water comes out. If and that's science. Why water comes out? It should if he's not dead, it wouldn't be water.
Right.
It would have been blood. And he obviously would have moved. And so it was absolutely proof of
And then the story of the resurrection is that he's physically alive. That he's not a ghost. Yeah. Right. He's not a vision. He's not an apparition.
He has wounds.
He has wounds you can touch. He is a body you can touch. In John's gospel, he's making breakfast on the beach. There's the assumption that he ate breakfast too, right? That he's a physical body. It's a physical resurrection. And then there's historical witness too. That kind of meets our criteria as moderns. Is we want witnesses, right? We want testimony, and it says there were 500 people that saw him and shared their story. And then we have the witness of the early church who were willing to die for this, rather than recant the truth of it. They said, no, this is true, and I'm willing to stake my life on it. And so all those things point to that our belief that Jesus really died, was really raised, and then our hope that means that's possible. Like the resurrection of the dead is possible. And so when we die, we're hoping that will happen to us too, that there will be a resurrection. But that is a miracle that is not explainable, that is out of the ordinary, that is, I don't know, what was the category C.S. Lewis called it?
The new
The
creation.
new creation miracle.
Yeah.
That that my faith hinges on that.
Right.
Like, if we found Jesus's bones somewhere, I would not be a Christian anymore, right?
Well, right. So, yeah, I was a young adult in college and went to go hear a speaker, a really like prominent Christian speaker who has sold best-selling books. And he was questioned. I don't even know what the question was, but I think it might have been, what if we found the bones of Jesus tomorrow? Would it like do anything to your faith? And he was like, nope, I still have the same Christian faith. And I like was a little taken aback because I was like, that would affect me if Jesus's body is still here, because I believe that he rose from the dead and then he ascended. So we can talk about ascension too. But that like rocked me. And I was like, no, I definitely believe that like Jesus's body cannot be found in an archaeological site tomorrow.
I mean, honestly, like I haven't really given a lot of thought, but I would just be Jewish. Like that's what I would do. Convert to Judaism if they found Jesus' body in a box somewhere.
Yeah. Lori shook me though on an Easter morning.
Yeah, but okay.
When I told her this, because she said,
okay, I didn't mean his dead body was somewhere. I meant his alive body was somewhere.
Okay.
So that's why I've been confused this whole time, since she brought this story up before we started filming, that I rocked her faith. And it wasn't, no, his dead body is somewhere. No, his living body is somewhere. Where is it?
Where is it?
Yeah. Okay, before I proceed with that.
So you think that, you would think that Jesus was just wandering around, maybe? I don't know.
Not aimlessly.
Not aimlessly.
Right,
no,
not aimlessly.
Still doing miracles, maybe.
Okay, this is going to take way too long. But what I meant was,
I also was rocked by this because I look to Lori as a spiritual mentor, and that is why this rocked me. And so now Lori is also reeling from that.
Her first mistake. No, so I think there was a fundamental misunderstanding.
I think so too.
I think that you thought I meant his bones were somewhere. And that is not what I meant. His living body is somewhere. And in the ascension, they watched him go, and I'm like, where did he go? Where is his body? If he's still in a physical body, where is it? That was the only thing. And that was just a fun little conjecture. That wasn't like,
right
I'm
before her
going to
Easter
destroy
sermon.
Right
you.
before well, because then I was like, where is Jesus? You're right. I'm going to go preach on the resurrection, though.
I'm so sorry. I repent in sackcloth. And
No,
ashes.
I was like, okay, if Lori said this, though, there's probably like deep theological understanding to this. Like maybe Jesus is on the move. And so I genuinely was like,
Aslan
I should
is
be
on the
praying
move.
about this and figuring out, yes, maybe Jesus is on the move.
Well, there's no question. I think God is at work everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
But the physical body, that's what it was. And so I don't know how much we want to go into how that answer was satisfied, that question was satisfied for me. But just if Jesus is, and I had not thought about this when I made that comment, if Jesus could appear and disappear after his resurrection, then once he ascended, he could also disappear into whatever other realm. I don't know. But I no longer was stuck thinking that he was out there with Voyager at the edge of the solar system, this body floating somewhere. But he is still in a physical body. It's just a transformed, transfigured, completely different substance other than, and yet still like ours in some way. Right. So I'm fine with sitting with that tension. I had no idea.
That I was still sitting in tension?
Yes.
I'm glad this has been resolved.
Yeah.
Well, because I have always lived with the tension of, yes, he came fully bodily resurrection, but he acts almost like a ghost sometimes. He pops in, he pops out, and he's very ghost-like. But, like, we believe that it's a bodily resurrection because we'll talk about this in a second, but, like, the Apostles' Creed, we have it in there that says we believe in the resurrection of the body. That's not Jesus's resurrection of the body. That's our resurrection of our bodies. And so this one moment in time, this miraculous moment in time that changed everything, also affects us and our personal bodies that we have walking around. And so I was like, well, if Jesus is walking around, maybe I'm going to walk. Like, I was just like, I got to work through this tension.
But we will be walking around somewhere.
We will.
Yes.
Yes. But do we poof into the other realm, as you kind of called it? I don't know.
I think it's possible. I think even physics allows for that somehow. I watched a show once. I'm an armchair science show watcher. I know nothing about science. I'm just saying. But something about, we see in what, 3 dimensions? And then with space-time is the 4th dimension. But there could be an unlimited number of dimensions. And some scientists, I remember this sentence, like a dinosaur could be walking through us right now because in some other plane of existence. All of that is fun to think about, or maddening to think about, either way. But the bottom line is, I believe in a physical Jesus, physically resurrected, that is somehow like me and yet profoundly unlike me, that one day I will be like because of what he does. And I'm okay with that. Where's my popcorn?
Let me out of this
I'm the one who
conversation
gets
again.
the popcorn in this one. That was great.
Right.
I think the implication of Jesus' resurrection is for Christians that we believe we'll have a resurrection like his. Like Paul talks about that in Romans. And so we take great interest in what was Jesus like after he rose from the dead. And the scriptures talk, that he could be touched, he ate, he had scars. Like that one always troubles me a little bit. Like, what scars do I carry with me into the next life, right? But it tells me that it's his same body, right? It's his resurrected body. It's not a new body. But it is different, right? In that he can appear and disappear, right? He can show up in a locked room and say, "Peace be with you," but then have Thomas touch the wounds in his side and his hand.
And there's also multiple stories. There's a story in Luke where he's walking the whole road to Emmaus and they don't recognize him. And then in John, Mary doesn't recognize him, calls him the gardener. So there's also something about like he was so transformed that his best friends didn't recognize him immediately.
So he's the same, but he's changed.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered if that's timelessness, right? If once you take the dying away from us, like, what do they, I think they say once you're born, you start dying.
Like
right?
we're
As
always
soon as you're
decaying.
born.
Yeah.
As soon as you're born, you start to die.
And so imagine that aspect of our existence is gone. We are not dying anymore. I wonder if that's the part that makes him unrecognizable. Like he's the same, but he's different because he doesn't have death as part of him anymore. And so it takes them a minute to recognize him. I mean, they do. Well, one of them does. Mary recognizes him. The road to Emmaus, when he breaks the bread.
The
they
breaking
recognize
of
him.
the bread,
Yes.
which I think is powerfully important. But
Very powerful.
Yeah, so it's the same but different. And so that's when we're trying to imagine what our destination is, what life after death is like for us, that's Jesus is the one who paints the picture for us. That's where we get our imagination of what that will be like.
Yeah.
And that's the miracle we're hoping for ourselves, right? Is that this life isn't the end. And those who don't believe in miracles, like, and I have family members who are atheists. I have people I know who are just so scientifically minded they don't have space in their imagination for miracles. But if you can get them talking about just their own experience of life, like, they will start talking in more supernatural language of there is an essence, there is a soul, there's a hope within them that there's more to life than just this physical existence. And people who reduce all of existence to like science, where it's, we're here and then we're gone, it's just such a narrow slice of a way of understanding our lives. I think it's an important slice, but it's narrow. And I think most people recognize that narrowness, that there's more to this life than what can be observed and tested and theorized about, but it's still experienced. And I think that's the realm of miracles. That's where God is active in different ways, and that's our hope for our future, right? Is that there's life beyond this one.
Do we think that if Jesus hadn't rose from the dead, we would still have the world religion of Christianity today?
No.
So I asked this because I had a priest get up on Easter Sunday and not mention at all the resurrection miracle. And then when I asked him about it afterwards, he said, I believe the disciples believed he rose from the dead. And I heard all that skepticism in that tone.
At
and
least
that
he's
sentence.
honest about his skepticism, but
Right? But I was also like, is this where the church is going to go? Because I do think that was the moment that Christianity became a full-on religion. And we cannot deny that he is the Son of God, that we can't just have the cross. We have to have Easter Sunday.
Well, and I think we've talked about this personally, about there are religions, denominations, churches within denominations that have given up on belief in miracles, have given up on the belief in resurrection. And you just watch them, and they slowly drift into just, they're not a religion. They're not Christianity anymore. They're maybe they're a social justice organization. Maybe they're just a fellowship organization, a community thing. But they just are not. They're not people of faith anymore. It's something else. When you give up on the resurrection, I don't know if you can say you're Christian anymore. They wouldn't say that. They would say, well, we follow the teachings of Jesus. We like his morality, just not his miracles. And I don't think you can divorce the two. I think those two are intertwined, like the healings that he did, right? Like that, the healing that he promises this world. I think that's what Christianity is. I think without the resurrection, it's something else. And there's lots of other things that are just like that. You don't need it to be called a religion or Christianity. It can be the Sierra Club or something like that.
Right.
It's not enough to lose my life over if there's no resurrection, right? Like, so you mentioned already about the disciples thinking I forgot how you said it, but this idea, why would they perpetuate something that didn't have truth to it? Is it worth it?
They would die for this truth. Like, they would die for this. Why not recount and be like, you're right. We just tore him. We stowed him over there. He's over in a different cave, and we're just trying to sell this.
You don't die for a lie that you know is a lie.
Right.
Right.
Well,
you might die for something you're deceived about.
Well, right. And so that would be if that priest was saying they thought they saw something. Well, I can see that maybe that 12 people saw that, but 500? And yes, I get that I'm taking scripture kind of literally there, but enough people believed they saw something to be willing for their lives to change over it and perhaps to be lost over it. And that's enough, for me.
That's pretty compelling to me.
It's pretty compelling, yeah.
Right. All right. So we're on Easter Sunday morning. It's going to come up here in the next few days for our listeners. What is the message we teach and preach on Easter morning? What is the why behind this miracle that has made it stand the test of time and still be the high holy day that brings grandkids to church with their grandparents?
Yeah,
and wear their best dresses and best outfits.
I think that's an interesting question I've never thought of, is why Easter?
Why Easter?
Why people come for that Sunday of all Sundays? Why that?
I think it's because it's one of our core messages.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, if you had to pick a Sunday to come, I would tell them to come on Easter, right? Like, that's the most important Sunday of the year. It's the holiest day of the Christian year.
Right. When I had walked away from the faith as a young adult, I came up to Easter and I was like, I haven't been to church all year, but my dad is in the back of my head going, it's Easter. You go to church on Easter.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I've preached it 20 times in my life, right? Easter Sunday. So I got it's hard to come up with something new, but the message isn't new. That God hasn't given up on this life, right? That God loves this world, created this world. It's fallen and broken, and it's decaying and dying, and we experience that in all sorts of different ways in our lives. And the resurrection of Jesus tells us that God hasn't given up on it, and not only hasn't given up on it, but is going to rescue it and bring it back to life and wholeness. And that God doesn't give up on us individually, that our lives matter, and so he won't allow them to end in death, but he will bring them back to life. God doesn't give up on our relationships with each other. If you've lost a loved one, that relationship feels like part of the grief of it is that's broken, right? I don't get to have this relationship with this person anymore. And God says in the resurrection, those relationships come back together. You get to have that relationship again. And then it's all of creation, will be, we talk about the new heaven and the new earth. And so it's just that God loves this world, loves the creation that he made, loves us individually, that he has jumped into the pit of death and destruction and has created a path out of it through the resurrection of Jesus.
Right. Come out victorious.
Yeah.
Beat death.
Right. Yeah.
That's the Easter sermon I always want to hear. God just defeats death.
He beat death.
Takes it down.
And he did it by a judo move. I always think of judo. You know, you take death's energy and you turn it against itself, and so you have the resurrection.
Yeah.
So he gives us life through death by
Yeah.
taking death on himself and showing that he's stronger than it.
Right.
This thing that is our greatest enemy.
Right. In the Eastern tradition, on like that holy Saturday before Easter Sunday, like they believe that Jesus, he does the harrowing of hell. That's what they call it. And so he goes down to hell and he just opens wide the door.
Yeah.
And so like everything that we thought was evil and corrupt and bad before, no, I'm gonna bring new life here. I'm gonna redeem everything past, everything future, everything present. And I love that image. We don't talk about that enough in the Lutheran Church, the Eastern Christians, and the harrowing of hell.
There's just this, like, when there's something good and beautiful and it's destroyed, like that, that's just devastatingly sad, and especially when it's a human person that you love and they're just gone. Like there's that aching pit in your soul of how could this beautiful thing be gone? And I think the resurrection is God saying it's not gone forever.
Yeah.
Right? That I can bring it back. That nothing good, nothing beautiful can ever be destroyed in my world, right? That God is able to bring things from the ashes, to bring things from death, to put all things good back together. And I need that to be true, because otherwise this world is just so awful, right? And
Hopeless,
sad and hopeless, and I would be despairing all the time of all these good things in the world and good people. Like, we're at a First Lutheran Church, 2/3 of our people are over 65. We do 25 funerals a year, and I do half of them. And so I get to hear these people's lives and the goodness of their life and the relationships they have and the love they had and the good work they did in the world. And to imagine that is just gone forever, like that, I couldn't live if that was true. Like, and so for Jesus to give me that hope and for me to proclaim that hope, that the good in that person who was made in the image of God, the relationships they had of love, the work they did in the world, the deposits they made and the people they loved all around them, that will go into eternity, that you will see that again, that will be brought back. That's the message of Easter for me and why it matters so much. And we need it because I'm just going to keep preaching. There's so much death and destruction and ending and wars and suffering and poverty in this world, and we see it all the time, and it's so tempting to just give in to that and to let that take us down and say that's just the way it is, there's nothing to be done. But the message of Jesus, message of the resurrection, is that the end of this world is goodness and life, and things that die are raised back to life. And so there's always hope. And so whatever situation you get into yourself where it just feels like you're against overwhelming odds, that the conclusion is written, that there's nothing you can do, the story of the resurrection says miracles happen, life comes out of death, pathways are made through dead ends, all that. And that's how we can live our life in this awful world,
right,
is to believe that there's always a way through,
right,
and God has proven that in Jesus.
right. And for me, it can't be a metaphor. It can't be this is a beautiful metaphorical story of him raising from the dead. No, I have to believe it really happened.
Right, because death really happens.
Death really happens. Right. Yeah. And so, I need to believe that he actually rose from the dead. That is core to my belief. There's no bones found elsewhere. I don't think that the disciples think they saw a risen Christ. It is true.
Or they stole the body in order to perpetuate that he had resurrected and then died for that. That doesn't make sense either.
Right. I mean, the whole idea of stealing the body and creating a false religion, to whose benefit? Which of those people that actually would have done that gained anything by it?
Right. This is not the Roman Catholic Church in the Renaissance who had all the money and all the power. Like, this is just like little fishermen in Galilee. Right.
Yeah. What did it benefit them to do that? Not a thing. Not a thing. And again, I'll go back to what you were saying, Pastor Travis. The idea of God calling life from death, it has to be what it's about. It's either true or it's not, and it is true. And God is in the redemption business. God is in the resurrection business. And so I can take that belief into anything that really hurts, whether it's my own pain or somebody else's pain, and say, this is not the end of the story. God is in the resurrection business.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is like our theology of the cross is that when we talk about the resurrection and a path where there was a way when there was no way, a path through dead ends, all of that, that doesn't mean we're trying to minimize the death,
not at all,
or the pain or the sorrow. We believe that God takes that seriously, and he didn't kind of skate above that. You know, that there was like Gnosticism was an early heresy that, you know, said that God isn't really physical, that Jesus wasn't really physical.
Oh, yeah.
That he was just kind of a divine being that looked like he was with us, but wasn't really with us.
Right, because God couldn't die. God shouldn't
and
die.
He couldn't suffer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we take the suffering of God in Jesus is also a huge part of our faith, because the resurrection isn't a victory over a fake death or a semi-death. It's over a real death, and
a gruesome one at that. Crucifixion was awful.
And an unjust one, right?
Yeah.
Like on the cross, everything awful in the world, all the pain, the evil, the suffering, and real suffering and death coalesces on the person of Jesus. He experiences it all, so that the victory over it can be victory over every aspect of those things that come against us.
Right.
And so we have that promise and that freedom that we can then proclaim in dark places in other people's suffering. Right. But not my point was that we don't minimize the suffering, but we say, even in this, there is hope.
Right, not in a dismissive way. And I'll just say, part of the reason we do this podcast is getting different perspectives. And I came out of a spirituality that said, because Jesus suffered, you will never have to.
Oh.
And a complete misapplication of Christus Victor, right, of succeeding and being the victor over death, basically by saying it's your get out of suffering free card, not just your get out of hell free, but your get out of suffering free card. And so that's why I really appreciate you saying that we don't take the suffering lightly either. We take it seriously. And the theology of the cross in Lutheranism that makes a big difference to me is because we don't get out of suffering. We don't. And it is through that, Jesus entering into that darkness and then being raised again, that we can have hope.
And that we can endure it. Like,
Yeah.
if suffering leads to death and death is the end, then you're going to get to that end a lot quicker than if you believe that suffering is not the end. Because then you can endure it, right? I've experienced bad things in my life and tragedies of people I love, and I can go through that because I know that is the interruption. That's not the ultimate reality. Like the ultimate reality is life and life with God and healing and wholeness and victory and freedom. And if I know that to be true because of what Jesus has revealed in the resurrection, then when I encounter the pain of suffering and death and tragedy and despair and loss, like it doesn't overcome me.
Right.
It's part of my story, but I know it's not the end of the story.
Right. I think this is why Christianity is growing so much in the global South, right? Like they're suffering, and this is the good news. I think that's also why Easter is one of those times that you show up to church, because it's the good news. Yeah. It's the gospel meaning good news in Greek. And like, this is the good news, is that death doesn't win, that suffering doesn't win. God's with you in that, but it's never the final chapter. The final chapter is God winning.
And people are coming back to church now, like in America, in our context, like our churches are filling up. And I think it's because the chaos of the world and the scariness of the world, and it feels like it's not getting better, but it's getting worse, and people don't know where it's going. And then Christianity is always the one that has this message of good news and hope, and that no matter how awful things get, and sometimes it's just our fear, but realities are pretty awful for a lot of people too, that there is hope beyond that. There is a coming out of that. There is a resurrection from that death.
Well, and it gives us a change in perspective. Like there's researchers out there that like say that if you start your day in gratitude and thanksgiving, that you will see more good things happening in your day. You'll have better mental health, right? Like you won't be constantly looking at the doom and gloom. You will be seeing the goodness. And so like to tie back to the beginning of our conversation, like if you believe in the resurrection and the miracle of the resurrection, you will probably be able to see more miracles in your world. You'll be able to see winning over suffering and death and the good news more.
And like Christians are able to go into lost causes, and fight for people who have no chance. And, like
Yes.
we're willing to go there because we believe in miracles. We believe things can change. We don't believe that what you see on the surface is all that there is and all that's possible.
Right. Okay. So should people go to church this Sunday?
Go to church, go to Easter, hear the good news, hear it for yourself, and then be part of that work of God to bring resurrection in the world.
Yeah.
Go to dark places and bring light.
Oh, could we be miracle workers? Let's end with that. We have a few more minutes. Could we be miracle workers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you tell a pastor that Jesus' body is somewhere. It's like
Don't
the
do that.
negative miracle.
No.
So let me tell a story, and tell me if you think this is a miracle or not. So I was, my first call was Helena, Montana. I was driving up to Great Falls for a synod meeting, one of our church meetings. And as I was going home, I had this thought, oh, wait, this young woman is in the hospital up here. And it was a little girl who, on the playground, had fallen ill. It turned out her stomach had twisted, and she was gonna, I don't know if she's gonna be paralyzed, but there's made brain damage happened and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that's right, she's here. I think she's in the hospital here in Great Falls. And so I made a U-turn and I went to the hospital and I walked in. Her parents are there, and when I walked in, they looked up at me and they just with wide eyes, and they said, Pastor, we were just praying that someone would come visit us. And you walked in the door. And I was like, I guess I believe that God is using me, and that he was the one that got my attention, put that thought in my mind, had me do the U-turn because I hadn't planned to visit them that day. I'd just come up for a meeting. But I mean, just the look in their eye, and for them, it was a miracle. It was an answered prayer immediately. Like they prayed and it got answered. And then I prayed with them, and she had a long journey ahead of her, but she lived and continued to improve. But when I think of a miracle worker, would you say that is a miracle? Or is that just answered prayer? Or is that just coincidence? Or what is that?
Because I believe it's a miracle. It's an answered prayer.
That it's God intervening in
Right.
the natural order of things, causing something to happen that wouldn't have happened with God's
Yeah, I'm not
intervention.
gonna. Yeah,
right?
I'm not gonna whisk it away with consequence. It's just it just happened.
Coincidence.
Coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah, I think miracle might be too strong of a word, that it's because
Yeah.
it didn't change nature or whatever, it didn't bring healing, but it was supernatural,
Yeah.
right? It was God's intervention.
Right.
It changed something for those parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it wasn't flash. You didn't walk in and the girl was immediately healed,
Right.
and walked out of the hospital. That didn't happen. So
There are pastors that claim that, though. They'll do services where miracles will happen in their midst. Yeah. Which I'm not opposed to God working through those people. I don't want to be judgmental or critical. That could happen.
I hope it does.
Right. I hope that those people are healed. I think we've just heard a lot of stories where, the adrenaline's rushing and suddenly they can walk, but then, a few minutes later, they're unfortunately still paralyzed. It is a thing. And so that's hard to hear.
yeah.
I don't want to end with that. So
But that does give people reason to question miracles. And
Yeah.
all we're doing is coming and saying, it's fine. We know that there have been things that have been claimed to be miracles that haven't been miracles. That doesn't mean that there are not profoundly beautiful, amazing, spectacular miracles as well.
right. And that you can be a part of miracle work in the world.
Yes.
Right. There's huge social justice movements that have happened because multiple people got involved and things miraculously changed in our society that would never have changed if people had just said, nah, it's not worth it.
And for that family who was watching the suffering of their daughter and having questions of, is God with us? Like that prayer that God got my attention to show up was the sign they needed that God is listening,
Yep.
hears them, and is with them. And that gave them strength to carry on and continue to believe and care for their daughter.
Right. We are the bringers of good news in our society. So go and do some miracles.
You are a miracle.
You are a miracle too.
Yeah.
All right. See you next week.